All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting of the Auburn School Committee of March 18th, 2026 to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll start down here on my right with introductions.
Dan Poisson, Ward 5.
Lydia Chapman, Ward 4.
Corin McGuigan, Ward 1.
Misty Edgecombe, Ward 2.
Pamela Albert at large.
Sue Doris, Superintendent.
Pat Gaudier, Ward 3.
Jay Rich at large.
Adam Platt, City Council Representative.
Scott Anier, Assistant Superintendent.
Amanda Kuchar, Business Manager.
Thank you. And Calvin Vinson, our student representative, cannot be here tonight. I'll start with the approval of the consent agenda, which includes the approval of tonight's agenda, as well as the approval of the minutes of the March 4th and March 11th committee meetings. Do I have a motion? Pat, do I have a second?
Second.
Misty, all those in favor? Motion carries. We do not have any recognitions this evening, and it does not look like we have anyone here for public participation tonight. So we are going to move right on to our presentation, starting with Cost Center 6.
And we'll turn it right over to Ms. Couture. Thank you. Before I start with Cost Center 6, I want to follow up on a question from last week, Cost Center 5 Technology. The question was, what is the percent increase? I do have some information. I'm not just going to give you a percent. I just want to give you a little bit more than that. So the FY27 budget for technology, this does not include salary and benefits, but purchase services, software, equipment, and such, $261,000. That's approximately a $40,000 increase, and that's just under 18%, if you want it as a percent. I did do a little digging and spoke to Mr. Robinson to get details. This is 100% in the software line, and 26,000 of that 40,000 is the same software licenses that we already subscribe to, just an increase to costs. So you're looking at 13,000 in 2 new softwares. The rest are the ones we already participate in, but the costs are going up. About 18%, a little less than that. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started with Cost Center 6, System Administration. So to make sure that everyone knows who or what is included in this cost center, this includes the superintendent, assistant superintendent, their staff, as well as the business office and human resources. So the business office includes myself, the school department accountant, and 3 additional staff who work in payroll, accounts payable, and accounts receivable. We have 1 human resources specialist, and then Dr. Doris, Mr. Anier, and their administrative assistant. So the increase from FY26, the current year, is $115,000 approximately, and that's an 8.6% increase. There are no bargaining agreements in this cost center, but we do a 3% standard cost of living increase each year. And then, of course, we've budgeted a 12% increase in health insurance. The additional increase to make up that $115,000 is in purchase services and insurance. The next cost center is 7, school administration. Very specifically, this is our principals, assistant principals, and their admin assistants. The increase for this cost center for FY27 is about $125,000 or 4.4%. I can tell you I did the math today. This is almost 100% in salary and benefits. Your 12% health insurance, your bargaining contract increase, and then 10,000 of it is in supplies. The rest is all salary and benefits. Please feel free to stop me if you have any questions along the way. The next cost center is transportation. A large increase, so we have a $550,000 increase. This is comprised of salaries, benefits, and purchase services. $131,000 and change comes from health insurance, and I looked at last year's number versus this year. We had 5 staff members that did not have health insurance last year who now have health insurance this year. So we actually went from 25 staff members that are either drivers or aides having health insurance to 30. So that's a very significant increase, not only because of the 12% increase, but also the number of staff members that are now taking advantage of the health insurance option. We have salary increases as well, and we also have some supplies and purchase services. We do have very good detail on this budget, where the numbers come from, and we are very careful not to budget where we don't need it. But unfortunately, we did have to put a little bit in for perhaps a Northeast bus. As we know, if we're short a driver, then we have to have a bus to follow that route. One thing we did not budget this year, although we had hoped to, is a new school bus, and that's because we really felt like this cost center was already increasing, so we declined that purchase, perhaps next year. You start to receive a little more information as we get into Cost Center 9. So Cost Center 9 is made up of the maintenance, staff, and purchases taken care of by our City of Auburn Public Works Department, as well as the memorandum of understanding we have with the City of Auburn to share costs for certain staff that work, some in the schools and some for the city. That's 75% of this cost center is just that maintenance MOU and the public works budget. The other 25% is made up of some debt service, which is capital improvement bonds, as well as building insurance, which is actually a decent cost as well. So the increases, first of all, it's about a $400,000 increase, 7.2%. And $300,000 of that increase is in the city MOU and maintenance costs. And I'll go in a little more depth into that on the next slide. But we also have about $35,000 in insurance coverage that we'll see in an increase, and then $65,000 in our debt service capital improvement bonds. So this next slide just goes into a few items. I really could have given you everything that's unnecessary. You have the reports for this cost center, but just a few examples. Utilities alone, that $300,000 increase that I mentioned, $152,000 of it is in utilities. We are seeing a large increase this year. Debt service, as I mentioned, I was off by a little bit, sorry, it's $69,500. And then cleaning supplies, you're looking at about $22,000. It really is significant, the supplies and services and the expenses going up. It is building up, and it adds up quickly, so.
Dan, do you have a question?
Yeah.
Does that go out for contract supplies?
Supplies, not so much. No, we tend to purchase from the same vendors. Utilities does. We do contract. We use our energy efficiencies. I'm remembering the name of the gentleman, but I'm a little embarrassed. I'm not remembering the company right now. But they help us go to bid every year or every 3 years, depending on what utility. So those are definitely out for bid. But now cleaning supplies, we tend to stick with same vendors. Any other questions before I go? Sorry if I'm talking too fast. So as I've mentioned, part of the Cost Center 9 is our capital improvement bonds. One discussion that we've had is the middle school renovations. And, sorry. Back on January 21st, Stephen Frazier from Harriman Associates presented our proposal for middle school renovations to allow the 6th grade to attend the middle school with the 7th and 8th grade. This $11.2 million on this slide would be the total of the bond. We can choose to begin paying the interest on that bond spring of FY27, or we can defer and start paying But generally speaking, the bond payments won't start until FY '28. So although it's in the FY '27 budget, we really don't see any significant costs until FY '28. In this next slide, I just kind of wanted to refresh everyone's memory on the overall project that was submitted or that was presented back in January for the middle school. We had about $5 million in needs in order for the sixth grade to attend the middle school. We had just over $6 million in capital improvement needs that have already been identified through our master plan, and we are getting closer and closer to the point where we have to do those. And then we did have about $600,000 in kitchen reconfiguration and some equipment replacement, and those would be funded through the school nutrition program, not the bond that we're requesting.
Just to clarify, so there would be no debt service in this coming fiscal year's budget related to this CIP bond request?
We don't have any in this year's budget, no.
It would start in FY '28?
Yep. Yes.
What will be the payment on the bond in '28, you know?
Well, it always starts at the highest amount because the interest is the highest in the first years. So in that first year, you're looking at about $1.5 million. And then it goes down. It would always be, the principal is 1.1 million. So it would go down to probably 50,000 each year-ish. Of course, it depends on what interest rate we lock it in at too. So it's always unknown until you sign. All right, so the last cost center that I'm presenting this evening is debt service, which is slightly different than our capital improvement bonds, and I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. This debt service is defined as the state-approved projects. So the slide that I'll start off with shows our current fiscal year where we're still paying our very last payments on the Park Avenue project. That was from 20 years ago. And then we have our Edward Little High School project, which we'll continue paying on for another 17 years, okay? So we have Park Avenue ages out, it expires out this year. We no longer have to make payments on it. So what's gonna happen is from FY '26 to '27, you see a pretty significant decrease in our debt service, and that $500,000 of that is the Park Avenue being all paid off. And then from there, we see about, it looks like about $230,000 to $240,000 each year, a decrease in the interest. So these are specific to cost center 10, debt service. What I did on this next slide is I kind of combined all of our bonds. So the first 3 rows are the debt service, cost center 10. The 4th row is our capital improvement bonds. Now, these numbers are different than the previous slide, and I want to explain why. These are specific to our local tax costs. So if I go back a slide, the high school principal and high school interest, 88% of that is paid back by the state through our ED 279, which we'll talk about next week a little more in depth. Okay, so 12% of that burden is on the taxpayers, and that's what I really got into on this slide right here, is really just the piece that is not paid back by the state. So as you see this year, we actually only have $33,600 and change towards the Park Avenue bond that is paid by the taxpayers. The Edward Little High School, it's about 1.1 million. And our CIP bonds, those tend to go about 10 years. So we have 8 of them, 7 of them, no, 8, sorry, over the last 10 years, and they total just over $1 million. That's principal and interest. So our total debt service, if you want to combine those, is $2.15 million. And next year, it will be slightly higher. We did take out an FY '26 bond that we currently have and are using for some capital improvement needs. You still see a slight decrease because the interest on the high school bond is decreasing by quite a bit. But because we took out a bond in FY '26, it almost counteracts that decrease. And what's happening when you look at FY '28 and '29 is if we don't take out a bond in FY '27, you see larger decreases. with fewer bonds. Now, if we do take out a bond, then that decrease in 28 and 29 will be different. But that's as it stands, that's what our debt service totals look like. And I think that's it for my slides. Yep, that's it for my slides tonight. I'll welcome any questions if you have any.
Anyone have any questions? Adam?
Thanks. I had a question back in transportation. I forget which cost center that was.
8.
8. I noticed that there were a couple line items under salary that doubled. I'm assuming that was the addition of a position or a filling of a position. Or maybe not. Could you explain to me why some of those lines doubled?
I'm going to ask you to take a look at that bottom line for that section, because unfortunately, as we went from one software to another, we cleaned up our accounts a little bit, and we had a lot of different lines that we were paying transportation out of. For instance, we had last year had budgeted for aides in a separate line. Well, we're paying all of our drivers and aides out of the same line now. So you'll see that that line is about $800,000. It may have been less last year, but now we have aid lines up at the top or towards the top that no longer have an amount in it. So in that section, I left my binder upstairs, I'm so sorry. In that section of salary transportation, this is just like the second group of accounts. It is a $295,000 increase, which is still a 28% increase. It's very significant. But overall, I'm looking for you to look at that line, the bolded line at the bottom, rather than each detailed line in there. Because like, for instance, for our special ed transportation, we had been using a district level, but the Department of Education asks us to use K-8 and 9-12, so we had to fix that. It's a different account.
So is the 28% increase because there's a decrease in, I mean, salaries went up 3%, insurance 12%.
There's
And we didn't add a head, so I'm just trying to understand where 28 came from.
Transportation, their salaries are about 5 to 6% that went up. The drivers went up 6%. The aides went up about 5%, just based on their contract. Dave Fontaine, our director, Dr. Doris, Mr. Anir, and I have done a lot of collaborating to discuss basically the way that these positions are. Believe it or not, they're not all the same. We might have 30 drivers in our contract, but some of them are hired for 6 hours a day, others for 8 hours a day. It could even be 5.5 hours a day is what we hire them for. And so in this year's budget, we really took all of that data and made sure it was accurate in the numbers, as well as we have some special purpose private schools where the students go through the summer as well. And so we're providing transportation using our staff members. Seems we have enough drivers now, and we can provide that in our salaries rather than in a purchase service. So you are seeing a bit of an increase in those salaries. The hope is that over time we see less in our purchase service with our contracted services out there, not just Northeast, but we've used a couple other vendors that are a little bit less expensive when we can.
That's what I was wondering, because if we're paying people more to do more, obviously we're paying someone less elsewhere to do it previously. So that purchase service.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Thank you. That makes sense.
Sometimes my explanations are too long.
Any other questions? I feel like I need a few minutes just to like flip through everything before
You
we.
should see, no, that's fine. I'll kind of fill in as you guys look. That would be fine. Cost Center 6 and Cost Center 8, you should see some staffing spreadsheets somewhere in that section.
Which cost centers again?
6 and 8. 8 being transportation. We have all of our drivers plus our director and admin assistants. And then Cost Center 6 being the system administration. All of those staff should be listed on a spreadsheet in there. I think it went to the back of that section, if I remember right.
I do have a quick question, and it's just because I'm new and I just want to understand. When you say purchased services, what does that mean?
So a purchase service could be a training for our staff. It could be a contracted service that comes in and repairs something. It really is, it kind of depends. If we're
like a
talking
blanket term.
transportation, we could be going to, we could be taking our vehicles to be registered or to be worked on. Yep. We also have a mechanic now. In the last few years, we added a mechanic to our contract for transportation. So we ended up spending more on supplies because that staff member does a lot of the services for us, which we don't have to pay for, but now we're purchasing more in supplies instead. Yeah.
In facilities, I was reading over the reports from the City of Auburn. One of them is talking about our fuel, oil, and gasoline, and the date was January 14th, and those costs have risen considerably since then, and I'm just curious if that's going to change anything substantially or
Well,
a lot.
the good news as far as transportation goes is we don't use a significant amount of those fossil fuels. As far as what the maintenance department ends up needing, we may see it be higher. 6 months from now, it may be lower. It's very hard, unfortunately, it's very hard to predict everything, but I think we've done a pretty good job of giving ourselves a bit of a cushion just in case.
Thank you. I'm also hoping for lower gas prices.
Any other questions tonight? Pat?
Curiosity, under the bus drivers, there are 3 vacant positions.
We have 3 vacant bus driver positions. Now, one is being filled by our director, one is being filled by a substitute driver, and one is we have hired Northeast to run that route. We have 3 folks who are actually training. Now, keep in mind that that was in January. I don't update the budget over the course of time. We may have 4 vacancies right now. You know, it's fluid. But we have folks that are currently van drivers who are also going through the training to become bus drivers, getting their CDL license and everything to do that. So we expect those vacancies to be filled in the fall. We have to use the driver and their bus. Yeah. They don't give us the option of just a staff member. Yeah.
I have one more question. In the facilities maintenance, you mentioned that we were sharing staff with the city. Does that help save us any money by sharing the staff?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. So prior to me coming here, I know there was a full-time facilities director. I know that Mr. Anier does a lot of that as well. But we have some really helpful staff through the Public Works Department with the city. And, you know, we pay, for instance, 15% of one person's position because overall it's about 1 day a week that we're using him in the school department. We do have some full-time folks, of course, as well that work in Public Works, that work for the school. But yeah, I think it's a really good setup. Yes.
Glad to hear that.
The AMS is a CIP request,
Yes.
and that goes to the city council.
Yes.
So if the CIP request gets approved for next year, then we'll see that capital improvement and debt service amount increase by that roughly $1.5 million starting in FY '28, right?
Correct. Yes.
So that would be added to what is now there. It's about just under $2 million. Yeah. Any other questions? I feel like I may come back next week with some questions after I've had some time to digest this a bit more, but, so.
I'll be back.
Yeah, and that goes for anyone else too. If you have questions about prior cost centers, after you've had time to go home and review, please come back prepared to ask questions about any cost center, at any of these meetings.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So we do not have a school committee student representatives report tonight. Dr. Doris, do we have a superintendent's report?
Yes, I do have a few items, thank you. First of all, I want to mention that this Friday is a teacher workshop day. We have rescheduled our professional development sessions from the canceled January workshop day, and the activities this year will be building-based and tailored to the needs of each building. And then the next notice here is that our all-city band concert will take place on March 24th, and the all-city choir concert is scheduled for April 30th. And these are both happening at the Donald M. Gay Performing Arts Center. We are looking forward to showcasing the incredible talent of our students at both events, and you are all invited to attend. I also want to make all of you aware that we will be sharing information about the AMS project with the City Council at their workshop on March 30th at 5:30 p.m. So this will give us an opportunity to explain in depth why we're proposing this, and also give the council some information about the cost and the potential future savings. That is Monday, March 30th, and we're on at 5:30. And then lastly, Monday, April 6th is the joint school committee and city council budget workshop, where we will present our finalized budget to the council. So you're all invited to attend that, and it will be right here in council chambers at 5:30. Are there any questions? That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not have a chairperson's report tonight. Adam, do we have a city council update?
Yes, we do. I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on the progress of the city council's budget presentations and deliberations. I wasn't here at the last school committee meeting, so this will be my first update on that. I think we're about 3 or 4 meetings in. The original city, if you followed along or read in the paper, the original manager proposed city budget had a overall increase to the city side of 13.7%. I don't have the numbers entirely in front of me, but I believe the intergovernmental increase, the county increase, was somewhere around 13%. The city operational piece, so the operational budget for the city, was 5 point something, 5 point, what was it?
6.9.
5.69. God, you're good at this, Scott. 5.69% on the city side. And then it was the debt service. That's what's driving the city's budget right now. That's going to be the talking point of every city councilor to every citizen. We've got a $45 million public safety building that was voted on by the public and by law was allowed to proceed. So that's what we're dealing with on the city side. As part of our process, the mayor asks us to come up with a number as a starting point, a number that we want to see as an increase. That number may be attainable, it may not be attainable, but that's where we start. In our first meeting, that number was 7.5%. We wanted to see roughly 6 percentage points off of the city budget, which comes out to about $4 million. Now, what the manager was tasked with was then showing us what that would look like if that were to come to fruition. I think as we're all aware on the city side and the school side, these budgets are pretty bare bones. Any cuts are, it's services, it's people, it's real things. So that's what we're trying to figure out right now. My hunch is, 7.5 is going to be a tough number to get to. So we'll see how the discussions progress, but we're going through department by department like you guys. I think one thing that's a little different with the way we're representing our budget, different from the city, we are really trying to pull out the debt service, and we're trying to talk about our budget without the debt service. We feel like it's kind of out of our control. On the school side this year, it obviously helps the optics of how our budget looks because debt service went down. But I'm saying this because I think this could be a talking point for where the conversation goes. I think we're going to be looking at operational budgets. Something I said at a meeting is I want to pay particular attention to the operational budgets of the school, police, fire. I don't those are core components of the city, all equally important. I don't want to see one of those going out of whack. So that's my personal view, not necessarily the view of the council. But that's my update. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask now or ask me later. But that's where we're at with the city budget. And we did go over our CIP, which is, I think it's important for everyone to see what we're spending capital improvement dollars on. Again, the way it works at the city level is the manager proposed to us on Monday the 5-year plan. It's not what it's going to be. So what we do is we accept that 5-year plan. We haven't done that yet, but it's a concept. And then over time, we actually approve the actual expenditures that get bonded. So it's more of a guide as to the types of projects and the magnitude of dollars that are being proposed. But as the school starts asking for more in the CIP, I think it'll be good to know what the city's already got on the table, because the city asked for a lot. School can probably start asking for something too.
Great, thank you, Adam. Does anyone have any questions for Adam? Okay. Moving on to our committee reports, we have the agenda and minutes from the March 10th Finance Subcommittee meeting linked, and I think the biggest topic item from those minutes are part of our new business, so we can wait until we get to that. We have the Policy Subcommittee agenda linked. They just met last night. Mm-hmm. The Curriculum Subcommittee agenda and minutes from the March 4th meeting are linked. Corin, do you have any updates from that meeting?
Just quickly, excuse me. We went over our annual review of the ESEA federal programs, Title 1, 2, 3, and 4, and received an overview of our unhoused students and MLL students from the directors and staff.
Okay, thank you. We have the minutes from the Health and Safety Subcommittee meeting from last week linked. We didn't have any special items. We just had standing items on this month's meeting, which covered our nursing report, our safety report from Jennifer Edwards from the city side, an update on social, emotional, and mental health from Corey Jameson at the high school, indicating that there's still challenges and increasing need for social work services and case management. Also noted that the PAL Center pantry is closing, which presents a challenge for students. Misty pointed out that there's going to be a new pantry opening at the Boys and Girls Club, which hopefully can step in to fill some of those needs. Melissa Hodgkins updated us on the multilingual learner program, that the district's number of MLL students has risen, and the recently completed testing included 390 students. She expects that number to rise to over 400 students by the end of the year. Guidance update from Mary Beth Galway, shared about K-12 transitions are starting for the next grade, are already underway. And then Scott gave an update on the ALICE training with the ASDER team, that they've been meeting regularly, and there are training drills set for March through end of March through early April. Anyone have any questions about any of that? Okay. And then the Facilities Subcommittee agenda and minutes from the March 10th meeting are also linked. Scott, do you have any updates from that you want to share?
Just probably the two, well, there's a handful of them here. First, the HVAC work at East Auburn. We had a really important meeting today. So we're hoping to get some of the scope of the work and some of their numbers back, and that kind of relates to CIP because that was one of the bonds that we had done last year. So we're still moving ahead, hoping to get that lined up for summer work. So that's an important one. One that I really want to be sure that folks hear is that we now have a new managing director for the Donald M. Gay Performing Arts Center, Justin Moriarty. He started on Monday. So he's been meeting with various staff members and identifying the upcoming events as well as potential rentals, and is just hitting the ground running and working really hard. So we're really happy and really pleased. We're still partnering with Lily even though she's away, she is really being very quite thoughtful in passing the baton, and so they're doing a lot of collaborating via emails and telephone calls, so that's some big news. But I did want to highlight the East Auburn piece because it does apply to the CIP.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Scott? Okay. Moving on, we do not have any old business tonight, so moving on to our new business, I'll entertain a motion to approve the use of $42,228 in the excess fund balance to pay for recent facility needs. Do I have a motion? Corin, do I have a second?
Second.
Adam? All right. There's a linked memo from Amanda attached to the agenda, but Amanda, would you like to give us just a summary?
Yes, hopefully you had a chance to read the memo, but we did have a somewhat emergency with our boiler at Franklin High School, the alternative school that we did have to replace. It actually was fixed within a week. It was wonderful. Yes, and within days, it was great. And then we also have a one-time purchase of cafeteria tables for the Park Avenue Elementary School. Principal Maris actually spoke about that when we were covering Cost Center 1. So she already kind of explained that to you folks. It being a one-time purchase and a significant number, we felt it better not to go into the budget, but to be that one-time excess fund balance request.
Anyone have any questions, discussion about this? Pat?
So the monies for the cafeteria tables will come out of,
It's actually not in the budget currently.
it's still not,
It's not in Cost Center 1. It was originally when it was requested, but as we were going through and meeting with principals and departments, we took it out.
So this request would come from the use of excess fund balance identified in FY24 audit, correct?
Correct, yep.
And we've already approved, there's actually a link to a spreadsheet in the memo of the previously approved items that we've already approved from the excess fund balance, which totals just under $250,000, just so everyone is reminded of what we've already approved.
Does this put us, understanding that the only benchmark we have is from what we know last year our fund balance to be, does this put us within the safe range of where we need to be based on last year's numbers?
Yeah, actually, as we're finishing up our FY25 budget we should already be in that space.
Okay.
so this is all 2024's fund balance.
It's based on the 24 audit because we haven't completed the FY25 audit, but it's funds that carry from year to year. So they're still available. They're not really assigned to a fiscal year. It's just that excess balance that stays with us unless we spend it down through our revenue, which is really all we've used it for in the past.
Like we have some of it going towards this upcoming budget. I think $2.35 million from the excess fund balance is allocated in this upcoming FY27 budget.
Yeah. Right, yeah. This FY25 audit, we're going to find that our fund balance has depleted a little bit. And so we're under the 9% that we were over by for 3 years in a row. So we were given that warning in our audit for FY24. So we're not really as concerned about bringing it down significantly. It's that we have it available. And in the past, we had capital improvement bonds that the project that was planned didn't cost as much or it didn't happen. And so we had excess funds in our capital improvement bonds in years past that we were spending down first. Now we don't have those excess funds in capital improvement bonds. We have 2 projects for FY26. We're saving those funds for those 2 projects until they're done. So we're kind of forced to look at that excess fund balance just to pay for those large purchases.
And the state requires us to keep the excess fund balance below 9%, correct?
Below 9% of our budget.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Which we had been over that, correct?
For 3 years,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Dan?
They don't require, don't they suggest that you keep it under there?
It's
I thought he said they suggest that you keep it.
It's required that we
Okay.
stay under 9% of our budget, yeah, for the excess fund balance.
Anyone have any other questions about this before we vote? Okay. All those in favor of approving the use of $42,228 from the excess fund balance to pay for the recent facility needs, the boiler at Franklin and the cafeteria tables at Park Ave. All those in favor? Motion carries. We have a list of all of our upcoming meetings, including our next budget meeting, correct, next week? Yep. As well as the city council workshop meetings that Dr. Doris mentioned on the 30th and the 6th. The 30th is probably optional for all of you if you want to come. It's when we'll present about the AMS project, and then the 6th is when we present our budget to the city council. Do I have any future agenda items or requests for information? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Pat, Corin, second. All those in favor? We are adjourned at 6:40 PM. Thank you, everyone.